Ta ham godt imot Laurent Fabius.
Hello, everybody. I'm French, but I will try to speak English. We are 1 year after the Paris Agreement and just a few days after the Marrakesh Conference. And I would like, in 10 minutes, to tell you where we stand. Let's be honest. The situation is worrisome. On the one hand, in the fight against climate change, there is progress, but on the other hand, we are facing a red alert. And this is what I call the post-Paris paradox. In a year, action against climate disruption has been marked by several positive and even impressive evolutions. The Paris Agreement in itself was amazingly successful. You know that 195 countries decided to step into a less carbonated world, if not completely carbon-free, by signing the first universal climate change-related agreement in history. And this success was achieved because of many of you, because of a certain diplomatic skill, but mainly because things came together allowing planets to align. What do I mean? The political planet, namely governments and UN, mobilization, the scientific planet, and I want to pay tribute to experts and academics who have done a wonderful job, and the societal planet, which gathered local authorities, businesses, actors from the financial sector, NGOs, and civil society. And thanks to this alignment of planets, whose previous COPs had not benefited from, we achieved an agreement which is not perfect, but which is simultaneously universal, ambitious, fair, and as legally binding as possible. And it includes, because it's the main goal of it, the objective of keeping the global temperature rise below 2 degrees, the commitment, quote, to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to only 1.5 degrees, and finally, the aim of carbon neutrality by the second half of this century. In the post-Paris period, there has been significant progress. The agreement was rapidly ratified, allowing it to enter into force on November 4th, just a few days before Marrakesh, and mostly a few days before American election. More than 100 countries have ratified it, representing more than 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. And I would like to take the opportunity to highlight Norway's special involvement. And I remember that during the Paris conference, my Norway's friends, representative, have been a great help for me and for the success. Two other major international advances to combat climate change were obtained last October, a few weeks ago. An agreement in Montreal regarding carbon emissions in the air travel sector, and a second agreement in Kigali, in Rwanda, plans to eliminate over time the emission of extremely harmful gases primarily used in refrigerating and air conditioning equipment. More generally, the overall context is supportive. Generally speaking, states are determined to act. Networks of local authority are organizing themselves. Companies are investing more and more into the green growth sector. They create jobs. Brand new technologies and carbon pricing initiatives are expanding. NGOs are making themselves heard more effectively, and particularly this Zero organization. And the global civil society is increasingly aware of climate change issues and eager to bring its own contribution. Therefore, generally speaking, the tone is positive, as proved in Marrakesh, when leaders decided to advance the roadmap from 2020 to 2018, and many of them to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. That is the positive side. Nevertheless, and this is what I call the post-Paris paradox, despite these positive developments, numerous worrying elements are building up. First, each year, as you all know, is getting warmer than the previous one. This is what happened in 2015 and what is likely going to happen again in 2016. The average global temperature has already been through a 1 degree increase in 2015 in comparison to pre-industrial levels. 1.5 degrees could be reached in the 2030s. 2 degrees could be passed by in 2050. That is 50 years before the intended target, and it shows the enormous risk. The deterioration is much worse and faster than what was imagined. In short, the color of the barometer is deep red. Second, the current state of the world energy mix is worrisome. Surely, renewable energies are developing fast, but about 82% of the entire global energy mix still today relies on the burning of fossil fuels. 82%. 31% for oil, 29% for coal, and 22% combustible gas. In terms of technology and financing, renewable energy resources are much more easily accessible, but they do remain unequally scattered throughout regions and quantitatively largely insufficient. At a worldwide level, we must do more for finance, more for technology, more for adaptation, more for poor countries. And the key lies in the question of coal, more specifically in South Asia. If we want to avoid a global catastrophe, alternative solutions have to be found, and found very rapidly. And at the top of these paradoxes, it is the very moment when a new impetus is required that a backlash may be feared. What do I mean? Since last November 8, a big question mark has been on our minds. Everyone has heard Mr. Trump's climate skeptical, even climate populist remarks throughout his campaign. He described climate change as a hoax, quote, a concept created by and for the Chinese in order to make US manufacturing non-competitive, unquote. The will to quit the Paris Agreement is among his promises, and the promise to foster the coal industry and to ensure the completion of the oil pipeline project between US and Canada. But we heard yesterday a sort of new and certainly better language. Climate change and human activities are linked, and this matter of climate change must be studied carefully. Those are his words. Is it pragmatism? Is it cynicism? Is it a sort of divine discovery? I don't know. But what I know is that it is vital that the US, which are the second largest polluter in the world, should be on board. This is what international cooperation asks the president-elect to do, and that is the message which has been sent by the world from Marrakesh. And that is my strong and short message today. We cannot afford 4 years of inaction. We cannot turn back. We cannot slow down at the very moment where all of us need to speed up the pace. Therefore, my conclusion is very short. This post-Paris paradox, we have to overcome it. Taking action against global warming is no longer an option. It is a worldwide obligation. Together, we must act, and if you are here, it's because you want to act, and you are acting. We must keep the spirit of Paris alive. Thank you. Thank you.